Hi, and welcome back or welcome to my channel. So, this is the second book in the series that I'm working on. It's called The Power of Babel by John McWhorter. Um, so the author of this book was actually recommended to me not by an English professor, but a history one. And he was someone I respected and whose classes I enjoyed. So I picked up several of his books, and for some reason I decided to start with this one first. It was written in 2003, so relatively recent, but one of his earlier books. So I think that's why I decided to go for that first. Um, I enjoyed the book. I'd say four out of five. Um, the author's tone is fresh. It's conversational without being inappropriately informal, right? And the book is full of personal anecdotes with the occasional joke or sarcastic remark thrown in here and there. So if you're into if you want a lighthearted book that treats a serious subject, I would suggest looking into this. Um, I've promised that I would have, that I would provide in-depth summaries, and of course I hold to that. But still, in a nutshell, this is what the book argues. Okay. Before we go into a chapter by chapter summary, it's nice to have an overview. So, in a nutshell, his main argument is that there is no such thing as a language, right? Strictly speaking, there's no such thing as language. Um, for him, there's only ever-changing dialects, right? The language for him is sort of like an ideal, right? That is at best practical, right? It's convenient. It's a convenient term, but it doesn't exist in actuality, right? Languages change so much that we never attained that purity, if you will. He also argues that all languages spoken today stem from one original mother language that sprang about 150,000 years ago in Africa. Um, Also, McWhorter claims that languages or dialects are invariably dynamic, right? They're changing all the time. Okay. There's no doubting that. I think that will become clear as you follow through with the chapter by chapter summary. Also, he mentions how different, right, human and animal languages are, and how our ability to communicate in such a complex way led to our success as a species. Now, if you can call our burgeoning a success, but that's another debate, I suppose. Complex language, he argues, is a facet of all human societies, right? It's not relegated to so-called advanced societies, right? It's also found in primitive societies. And in fact, he argues that the more primitive a society is, the more complex their languages are. The members of primitive societies have more complex languages than urban ones, which was an interesting thing to read and certainly a new one for me. And finally, he says that languages are not something they're not something that's dictated from above, right? Um, they're creatively used every day by non-linguists. Okay. Um, yeah. Uh, Obviously, they always transform, as I said, but of course, their purpose remains the same, and that purpose is to communicate. Um, Right, so that's an overview of the book. Now, to reasonably comprehend the spread of language and its morphing from one original language into the 6,000 or so we have today, the author requires more help than what linguistic theory can offer. Um, so he makes use of geography, he makes use of history, he makes use of sociology, right? Those are the main ones. And as he says in the introduction, and I quote here, excuse me, my aim is to tell a story that has yet to be shared with a general reading public, rather than to contribute by reinforcement to spreading messages about language already treated in accessible sources. Page 10 of the version I'm using. In other words, McWhorter is saying that I have the layperson in mind, right? I have the average man, the average woman as my audience, right? I'm not writing for my fellow linguists. I'm writing for the everyday person. Okay, great. So now that we know what the book is about in a nutshell, we know what the author's aim is, and we know his intended audience, right? So let's start the chapter by chapter summary. I'll see you in the next video. And as always, if you're interested in picking up the book, please see the link below for a description. I'll also put in my Goodreads link in case you want to follow me or, see what I'm reading and all that jazz. All right.